Spur.
Yeah, but I can't remember her first name. It should be easy to find out because there's several other cousins that have done research on the family.
Do you know any of the names of these cousins?
Oh, well, let's see. I think Alice Kibble did some of that, and
Kibble?
yeah, that was Dad's sister's husband, Ernest Kibble. He was of English descent, and let's see. Cousin Earl, Luke's wife, she did a lot of extensive.
But would she have included your mother's family?
Oh yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I wish I had hours and hours, but Sue's running out of time. She's got places to go and people to meet.
Well, we gotta take Seth to meet on the other.
So we gotta take Seth. So I guess we're gonna shut this down for the day, and we're gonna
You got all you want? We got a few more minutes.
What year was Aunt Grace born? Your sister Grace?
Well, see, I was born 21 and she was 3 years older, so she was born 18.
Okay. Well, her first husband's name was Bob Gowdy.
Yes, Robert Gowdy.
Okay. And he died during World War II.
Yeah. It was, I forget the name of the big old carrier. It may have been the Lexington, but I'm not sure. And he was a radar officer. Radar was a new thing then.
That's Uncle Aunt Grace's.
First husband.
And
Aunt Grace, the one that you talk about that's still in California.
Right.
Okay.
the government sent him to Princeton University, and this was when Einstein was still there. And Einstein was pretty well taken with Margaret and Joey. They were just babies at the time, and they used to have sort of informal meetings with the faculty and some of the advanced students. And so Grace would be invited, and she'd take the children. And old Einstein just really doted on those kids,
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, so what year were you and Aunt Grace married? This Aunt Grace.
What year?
No.
49, wasn't it, dear?
48. And what year was Larry, well, all that.
Larry's Aunt Grace's child.
And right, so he was born before that.
He was born in 45,
And then Nancy
49.
in 49. And then y'all went here to go to California in 64, is that what you said?
And you
First we
moved
went-
to
after we
South.
went to Dakota, South Dakota.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where we lived when we first got married.
That's where Nancy was born. And
I know one of the things I wanted to ask you. Do you guys remember going to Germany years ago, and you came back telling me stories about pictures in some museum that you said all the women look like me? You remember that? And somehow or other, I've been told somewhere along the line that some of our ancestors, a great Aunt Louisa, who I don't have a clue who great Aunt Louisa is, was somehow or other related to the Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany. And I'd like to know what the connection is. Do you have any clue?
well, that's kind of vague, but Queen Victoria had numerous.
Oh, yeah, sure. Who's the kids?
Queen Victoria, Aunt Louisa was one of her daughters, and she, I don't know how come she didn't go to Germany, but apparently,
Aunt Louisa was the daughter of who?
Queen Victoria. So how did Aunt Louisa get to be our Aunt Louisa?
Well, I guess just by being born that way.
But how is she
The
related
story
to us?
was that, as I heard it, that she was a favorite aunt of the Kaiser, and that politics being what it was then and now, any of our family that wanted a special favor from the crown or from the government would go to Aunt Louisa, and Aunt Louisa would go to the Kaiser and kind of kid him
But
along.
how is
Well, but-
Aunt Louisa kin to us? Do you
Is Aunt Louisa sister, brother to somebody that, as our grandfather or great grandfather or what?
Did she marry somebody that was part of our family, or how did she get to be our Aunt Louisa is what I want to know.
Well, yeah, she apparently she was related to August Sanders'
Grandmother's father. Okay.
August Sanders.
Now you're getting to
Now-
August Sanders' parents. I don't know which one.
Okay.
And he is in Germany.
Well, August Sanders and his wife were children when they came to this country. And August and his wife were married in this country, and his family originally lived in Detroit. And in the 1800s, 1880s or so, they sold their farm in Detroit. I had this from grandmother Almack, and moved to Minnesota and then ultimately further west. And the farm they sold, they had bought for like 50 cents an acre, and they sold it for $15 an acre, and the farm they owned became downtown Detroit.
Oh, really? Huh.
And so she used to talk about Aunt Louisa, she used to
Alright,
talk
so
about
say Aunt Louisa again, she's what?
Aunt Louisa is in some way related to my grandmother's father, in other words, my great-grandfather. He was, I believe, her Aunt Louisa.
Okay, so
She
your
was
grand-
his grandmother, Lionel Saunders,
Okay.
Vanderman, Luke, Allenback, was the daughter of August Sanders, whose aunt was Louisa somebody rather, who was the daughter of Queen Victoria of England,
Okay.
the Queen Victoria.
Grace's middle name, my Aunt Grace is Louisa, so
Well,
that's why.
an interesting thing, she was named during World War One, and some of those rednecks over in Ordnance Courthouse, and they were so anti-German that they wouldn't tolerate American kid being named with a German name, and they dropped the A.
You mean from Grace, your sister?
Yeah, and officially, her name is Grace Louise.
But it should be Louisa.
Yeah.
That's what she says her name is, Grace Louisa.
Well, that's what I've always heard. But and I never could quite understand how it got, but the fact that August Saunders was a child of, or somewhere, anyway, I got it, it's close as, I think we can trace that. I bet we can trace it.
Well, you need to write all this down.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions?
Well, that one blew me away, so. See, anything else? Right. You remember, she married a man named Long. Did you ever know his full name?
Jim.
Jim
Jim
Long.
Long, yeah, and he was a kind of a ne'er-do well.
I'm done with my-
Colton, just a minute.
They-
Put it in your lap.
there was elderly, dependent women coming up in the fours back then, and like the rest of them, she needed a man.
Well, tell me, where was the boarding house that she ran when grandmother met grandfather Roscoe Lindemann? Do you know where
That was in
that?
Oklahoma City,
Oklahoma City. Okay.
It's Joe,
and
and they was determined.
They,
Put it down, Joseph John Hill.
they sold that, and See, the grandmother's brother, one of the spur boy, two of the spur boy, lived at Tyndall, South Dakota. So they wanted her to come up there where they could kind of look after her, at least be a little more.
She died it.
So she sold
Give me a
her
minute.
house in Oklahoma City, came up and bought a big hotel there in Tyndall. And I think she ran a boarding house